Hi, my name is Samantha.
And I'm Rachel.
The paper that we're doing our oral presentation over is this paper called Evaluating the Landscape of Fear Between Apex Predatory Sharks and Mobile Sea Turtles Across a Large Dynamic Seascape. All of the authors are listed down here. I'm not going to read through all of them because there's quite a few. I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the introduction. So in order to understand this paper, you need to understand the landscape of fear model. And the landscape of fear model is essentially saying that prey must have a knowledge of the safe and risky areas within their home range. And it's assuming that these prey are also going to change their behavior based on how safe or risky the environment is. So all of the other studies that have been done over the landscape of fear model have been done at small scales over things like crickets and spiders, things that you can do in a lab. They haven't been in large dynamic spaces like the ocean, which is what this paper is talking about. And the predictions from these smaller studies are saying that in these large dynamic spatial areas, it's going to be much more difficult for risk cues to be detected by prey items. In this study, we're talking about tiger sharks and loggerhead sea turtles. So loggerhead sea turtles are the prey item for tiger sharks. Their distributions are overlapping during their seasonal migrations in the summer. In the winter, they aren't overlapping. In the summer, they are. And sea turtles have these trade-offs between choosing to avoid predators or choosing to take the opportunities to find food or to find places for nesting and laying eggs. All of the data for this study was collected via satellite tracking. There are three main predictions from this introduction. The first is that the summer season is when the turtle and the shark overlap are going to be the highest and the largest. And the second is that in these areas, tiger sharks are going to be under the surface more to increase prey capture. So from that, we know that tiger sharks, they attack the sea turtles from underneath them when the sea turtles are breaching. And the other prediction, the last one, is that in these areas, the loggerhead turtles are going to be at the surface less to reduce predation risk. And that's all for the introduction.
So for the methods, the first subject is satellite tracking, and there were 31 tiger sharks tagged, which were in the size known to consume turtles, and they were tagged from 2010 to 2013. And there were 68 female loggerhead turtles that were tagged from 1998 to 2008. For the movement data, the locations of the sharks and turtles were tagged by Argos CLS and mapped in ArcGIS. The home ranges were determined separately using kernel density estimates, and calculations were made for the spatial overlap of the core home ranges, which were high-risk areas for turtles and high predation opportunities for sharks. Data was analyzed comparing the winter versus summer months. For surface behavior, the tags only transmitted to receivers when it broke the water surface, which indicated the duration time for animals at the surface and the frequency of surfacing, which allowed comparisons to be made for the total time at surface against transmissions received. And for shark-turtle interactions, GIS was used to determine if the position data point was in or out of 90% of KDE turtle-shark overlap area, and this tested for differences in surfacing behavior in and out of home range overlap areas. And that's all for methods.
So in the results section, I'm going to go ahead and explain what all of these figures and tables are meaning for our results. So this image over here on the most left-hand side, this is the summer data for the tiger sharks, and then right next to it is the summer data for the loggerhead sea turtles, and then the most far right section is the overlap for them in the summer. The bottom is the same thing, but it's just for the winter months, and you can notice that in the summer there's a lot more overlap than there is in the winter. So for tiger sharks, they track them for 6,736 days, and they track the loggerhead turtles for a lot more days. They had them for nearly 30,000. But on the contrary, the tiger sharks used a whole lot more habitat, and they used 437,397 kilometers squared of area. So you can even just see in this top left graph how much more habitat the tiger sharks are using than the sea turtles right next to them. And the sea turtles did use significantly less, with only 18,903 kilometers squared of area. In this graph over here, it's showing the data from the Argos satellite trackers that only submitted that data every time they breached the water surface. And you've got your sea turtles down here and the tiger sharks up here, and you can see the winter months are here until they kind of switch their positions. So the number of the Argos locations, they estimated a good indicator of how long the sea turtles and the sharks spent at the surface. And you can see over here that the mean turtle surfacing was positively related with the range overlap, which happened in the summer months. And then it was also negatively related for shark surfacing in the summer months. This chart over here is from the statistical analysis that they conducted. So the variable, these messages are from the Argos satellite tracking, sending up messages every time they breach the water. And the top part is the summer, the bottom is the winter. And what they found was that there was no significant difference between the turtle and the shark surfacing in areas of overlap versus the areas without overlap. So they didn't find a huge difference between the summer and the winter months and how much they were breaching water. But they did find that turtle surfacing was higher in months where there was overlapping areas and shark surfacing was lower in these summer months. But the statistical analysis didn't say that it was significant, so we can't really take a ton from that.
For the discussion, so the investigation differed from the predictions based on the landscape fear model. Turtles didn't exhibit avoidance behaviors, but sharks spent more time underwater in areas of overlap to ambush turtles from below and enhance predation opportunity. They found out temperature affects turtles' distribution activity. During the winter, turtles reduce surface activity, lowering predation risk, and sharks spend more time at the surface for thermoregulation. And the low turtle shark overlap in winter could be a result of temperature limiting their interactions, but in the summer, neither species is constricted by temperature. So turtles can be a bit driven by environmental factors, foraging, nesting, or anthropogenic factors like boat avoidance that outweigh predation risk. An explanation could be exploitation of turtles and sharks that reduce the population below functional densities that would elicit turtle anti-predator behaviors. And for the next slide, the study was important because it was the first to evaluate the landscape fear model across a dynamic ocean with very mobile predator and prey. And it's important to see the different factors that affect the populations and how it could be applicable to other interactions. And it's important because predation by tiger sharks play an important role in regulating turtle populations and impact the ecosystem through trophic cascades.
That's all we have for this presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.